Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the ADCET webinar on how to structure documents correctly. Before I begin, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional and original custodians of the land on where I am today, the Palawa people, and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal community who continue to maintain their identity, culture and Aboriginal rights. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Darlene McLennan we're excited to be able to offer this presentation to you today on how to structure documents correctly. Working in this sector for over 14 or 15 years, it still frustrates me that we as a sector often don't do this well, and I'm really excited that we actually had the opportunity to hear from our presenter Andrew Downing about how to do this better, because I think all of us can improve our practice. Andrew, if you've read his bio on our website, has worked for many years in the vet sector in providing information to staff and students on adaptive technology. We've been very fortunate at ADCET to have Andrew be working for us in the last couple of months to actually produce some how-to videos, which we hope to launch soon, and also doing this webinar. You can see on your screen now is some little bit of how to set up Zoom if you need, but I'll just go through some things. If you want to activate closed captioning, you click on the CC button on the toolbar. This is located either on the top or bottom of your screen. To increase the number of lines appearing in the caption box, you click on the small arrow at the top right side of the caption box. If you have any technical issues throughout the webinar, you can contact us on admin@adcet.edu.au. That's admin@adcet.edu.au. The presentation will run for around 50 or so minutes, and we'll have 10 or so minutes for questions at the end. But throughout Andrew's presentation, please feel free to put your questions into the chat pod or into the question pod. If you're wanting to have a conversation with other people, you can actually choose the entire audience by selecting all panel and attendees. And previous webinars, people have actually been able to answer each other, put links that might be discussed into the chat pod. So that's been quite an interactive process for this webinar. Andrew's happy if there's any confusion throughout the webinar for me to jump in and ask him some clarification questions if someone has asked for clarification throughout the presentation. So we will do that. But otherwise, yeah, the questions will be asked at the end. I think that's all. I really sit back, enjoy the webinar. Hopefully at the end of the hour, you'll feel a lot more wiser, as I will. So over to you, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darlene. Good afternoon all, or good morning or good evening, depending where you are in the world. It's one of the things I love about this technology. We can talk to people all over the place. Now, you may think this is a pretty dry old subject, but let me assure you that after an hour, you are going to have a whole new perspective on life, the universe and everything, or at least when it comes to structuring documents. So what we're going to look at, the first thing I want to get across is that correct document structure and accessibility are not hard to do. In fact, one of the things I want to get across is that if you know how to structure documents correctly, you will save yourself a huge amount of time and effort, which I'll stress during the presentation. I'll be focusing on Microsoft Word, but the principles I'll be discussing are relevant to other formats. I'm going to, just apologies in advance when I do cough. My throat is a bit less than optimal at the moment. I'll do my best not to splutter though. I want to say a little bit about writing meaningful alternative text for images. And I'm hoping I will have time at the end to look at converting from Word documents to accessible PDF documents. Benefits of structured documents. Consistent appearance within the document and between documents. Saves much time and effort, I told you I'd say that. Saves much time and effort both when creating the document and when editing later. It allows easy creation of accessible PDF files, DAISY and EPUB books, hard copy braille material, and XML files. I'm now going to show you two documents. Have a look at that file. Now have a look at this file. And unless you're very keen, you won't pick much difference between them. But the first one, this one is unstructured, and this one is structured. So back to our unstructured one. Now I'm using the screen reader for my own purposes here because I'm blind, but I'm going to let you hear the screen reader from time to time during the presentation, including right now. So I'm going to get the screen reader to read this unstructured document to you, or just a little bit of it, and then we'll go to the structured document.
To create a well-structured file.
Let's go to the top.
Sample structured file. Using styles. To create a well-structured file, it is important to use formal styles. That is, do not just adjust font size and style to get the appearance you want.
So we'll leave that there. Now I'm going to the structured document.
Samples.
And you'll hear that the screen reader provides me with a lot more information.
Heading level 1 sample structured file. Heading level 2 style heading 2 using styles. Style normal. To create a well-structured file, it is important to use formal styles. That is, do not just adjust font size and style to get the appearance you want.
So there you heard the screen reader announcing the type of style that was being used. Heading 1, heading 2, and then normal. But it's not just for screen reader users that structuring is important. If I turn on the navigation pane, which I will do by going to the View menu, I'm going to check the navigation pane. Now this allows me to navigate the document. So I could go to using styles, tables. If I hit enter on that, it then drops me onto the tables heading. Now on a one-page document, that's not terribly important, but for a large document, it is really important. Another benefit of structuring is that if you've done your document well, you can then very easily create a table of contents. Word will do all that work for you, whereas if you don't structure it, if you just make it look the way you want it to by adjusting font and paragraph spacing and so forth, then that won't work. Hierarchical headings. A level 2 heading follows a level 1, a level 3 follows a level 2, etc. Don't skip heading levels, so don't jump, say, from a level 1 to a level 3 heading. It's important that the visual appearance matches the level of the heading. I have come across cases where a level 3 heading has a bigger font than a level 2, and that's really quite silly. Pardon me. Because the idea of using hierarchical headings is that it sets up the structure of the document. So the chapter might start with a level 1 heading, and then subsections within the chapter would be a level 2, and if you go further down, a level 3. And just as you visually would look at the size of the text and know what that means, screen reader users use the heading level to know how the document is structured. A bit more about hierarchical headings. Now this applies specifically to Word, but it is well worth knowing. You can select your heading levels and all your other styles with the mouse, but you can also do it from the keyboard. I'm a bit of a keyboard fan, but whatever works for you. Control-Alt-1 gives you a level 1 heading. Control-Alt-2 for a level 2 and Control-Alt-3 for a level 3. Word doesn't go any further than that with its default layout, but Shift-Alt-Right arrow will take it down another level if you really must have your documents that complicated, and Shift-Alt-Left arrow brings it up a level. The other important one, Shift Control N gives you a normal paragraph. Let's jump back to our structured document. I'm on the level 1 heading. If I press Control Alt 3, it's suddenly turned into a level 3 heading. Shift Control N, it's now a normal style. Let's put it back to where it should be. So it makes it very quick and easy to set up your document. And as you're writing the document, if you want another heading, you just press the appropriate key combination or select it from the home tab of the ribbon as you wish, and there's the style applied. Making paragraphs look just so, and most of you will probably know this. You can either right-click in the paragraph or use the application key if your keyboard has one. The application key is that very useful key just to the left of the right control key. If your keyboard has one. Another option is if your keyboard, and some don't these days, if it doesn't have an application key, Shift F10 will do it. So for the paragraph, you can adjust the space before and after the paragraph. You can adjust the amount of indent. You can adjust the hanging indent. Don't use multiple key presses, enter presses to create the space between your paragraphs. That's very uncool. For the font, you can adjust the font size, style, and color. So let's have a look at our document again. I'm going to select this whole paragraph. There's a few ways of doing that. I just press the F8 key 4 times. Now I'm pressing the application key. Let's go to the paragraph. Now there's quite a few settings. I'm not going to adjust very much, but what I will do, I'm going to adjust the spacing after it from 12 points to 18 points. You might have noticed I have a 0-point gap at the top of the paragraph. Some people like to have, say, 6 above and 6 below. I find it easier to calculate by doing it this way, but again, it's up to you. So now I've increased the spacing after this particular paragraph. I'm going to press the application key again, go to font, and I'll just increase the size from 12 to 14. So that's adjusted that paragraph for the moment. I'm going to leave that there and we'll come back to it in a moment. But now we get to the really important bit of modifying and creating styles. You can either select styles from the home tab of the ribbon, or you can open the styles toolbar with this rather complicated key combination of Control Alt Shift S. One of the things you can do, and I'll show you in a moment, is to select Update Style, and that updates all instances of the particular style that you're focused on throughout the document. And that's really important. So if you have a document that someone needs slightly larger or smaller or a different color or whatever font, rather than having to completely redo the document, you can do all your normal paragraphs in one hit, and then you'd have to go back and do your headings and so forth. But that's much better than having to reformat the whole document. You can save the selection as a new style, and if you're going to use that appearance throughout your document, or even if you're only going to use it once, it is really good practice to create a style. Don't just leave it as the normal style like I've done back there a while ago. Let's come back to our document. I'm going to press this complicated keyboard combination, Control Alt Shift S, and that opens the styles toolbar. So I'm on the normal style. I could arrow to other styles. Before I do anything with that, I just want to show you a couple of settings in options. Now, select styles to show. Word says as recommended. I don't like their recommendations much. You can show in the current document or all styles. For the moment, I'll choose in current document. And the sort order they say as recommended, which again, I don't like, but you might. I'm going to select by type because that's essentially alphabetical order, and for my brain that actually works better. We'll OK that, and that drops us back to the document, so we'll come back to our toolbar. Now if I hit enter on that button there, that would create the normal style, which is what it is already. So if I hit enter on figure, which is where I am now, that would create the figure style. But what I'm going to do is to press the application key. Again, you can either right click or use Shift F10. And this updates normal to match selection. And we do a shift. What I didn't mention, F6 and Shift F6 moves you between the various open panes in your Word document. So now this paragraph has the increased font, as does the paragraph about tables. So every normal paragraph is now bigger with more spacing after it. And that doesn't matter if it's a 1-page document or a 500-page document. And that's really important. And I've covered this one, I think, already. Yes, there are many more options that you can look at in that toolbar that I didn't show you, but you can look through them at your leisure. One important one is whether you want to save the style in this document only or in all documents. If it's a style that you're really only going to use once, then in this document's fine. But if, like me, you don't really like the default layout or the default appearance of the styles that Microsoft offers, you can change, say, your heading 1, heading 2 levels, and you can then save them so that next time you open a document, it will be the way you like it to be. And in that case, you would choose in all documents based on this template. Creating lists. As you might expect, we use specific styles for lists, but Word makes it quite easy for you. So to create a bulleted list easily, just press the asterisk key followed by a tab, or perhaps the space bar, but tab's probably safer. Write your first item, press enter, and the next bulleted item will appear. So for numbered lists, it's the same sort of thing. Push your number. Number 1 is usually the best to start with, and you can use punctuation such as full stop, right parentheses, whatever. And you can use letters if you want to do it that way as well. Let's have a look at a document very quickly. So this is going to be very exciting for you. I'll push the asterisk and a tab. First item. Now we have another bullet. Second item. Third item. Now if I press the enter key twice at this point, that drops it back to a normal style. It's just a convenient way of getting out of the the list style. Despite what I said earlier, I'm putting an extra break in there just to break it up. I'm going to do 1 full stop, another first item, and there's our second, etc. We'll stop it at that. I think you get the point. And there are options for allowing to, if you start another list, you can continue numbering from where you were before or start again and all sorts. I'll just delete all that and we'll come back to our PowerPoint. Creating tables. Use tables for displaying tabular data. I have a reasonably lenient view as to what is tabular data. Some people are a bit more rigid. What you really shouldn't use tables for is for laying out text on the page just so you can put the text where you want it, because that will almost always mean that assistive technology will have real trouble knowing which order to present it to the reader, and the reader will get very cross. So that's, you don't want that. Create the table from the Insert tab of the ribbon. Don't draw the table, because if you do, it won't be accessible. Especially in Word, try not to create non-uniform tables. That is, tables with merged cells. In HTML and in PDF, if you're very clever, it is possible to use merged cells and code them so that screen readers know what's going on. But in Word, it's not quite that good. Under properties in the layout tab of the ribbon, uncheck allow cells to break across pages. If you've got a lot of material in the cell, that might mean that you waste a lot of space on the page, but then you might need to consider whether you're using your table appropriately anyway. And check repeaters header right at the top of each page, and I'll show you this in a moment, don't worry. And auto fit to content I like, because it just saves having to work out how big or small to make each cell on the table. Let's go back to our blank document, and I'll insert a table. So we go to the Insert tab of the ribbon. It's Alt-N if you want to use the keyboard command. We'll go to Table, and we can select the size of the table. So I'll make it 3 by 6. And there's our table with 6 rows and 3 columns. If you miscalculate and you want the table to be bigger or smaller, that's quite easy to do. You can add rows, you can delete rows and columns and so forth. Word allows you to do that quite easily. Just excuse me a second. Okay. I'm now going to bring up a table, which I've pre-prepared. So as we say at the top there, the information in this table is completely fictitious. I made it all up. I'm going to let you hear the screen reader.
Table with 6 rows and 9 columns, level 1 row, 1 column, 1 style table grid.
So we told me that the table has, what is it, 6 rows and...
Table with 6 rows and 9 columns.
6 rows and 9 columns, yeah, okay. Now, there are specific keyboard screen reader commands to move around the table, and it continues to frustrate me that a whole lot of screen reader users do not know them.
Row 2 Monday.
So now I'm on Monday. I'm going to go to the right.
Brisbane column 220. Sydney column 315. Canberra column 410.
You'll notice it's announcing the column heading as well as the cell that I'm focused on, and that's because I have checked that repeaters header right at the top of each page. So even if the table doesn't go over to a second page, it is still a useful thing to do. For some reason, when you check that, that tells the screen reader that it's a column heading. What you can't do in Word is to set it so that when I go down the column,
row 312, row 414,
you can't automatically get it to announce the row headings. The screen readers do provide a facility for dealing with that. I'll come back to the left.
Column 1 Wednesday, row 2 Monday.
I'm going to press a command.
Set row 2 column 1 as start of row headers.
Now I'm going to go to the right.
Brisbane column 220.
Now I'm going down the column.
Tuesday row 319. Wednesday row 423.
So now it's announcing the row heading as well, which is quite important. The next thing I'm going to show you is, before I do that, I'm now on the top left cell of the table. I'm pressing the application key. Again, you could right click in the cell. I'm going up to table properties. We're on the table tab. We'll go to the row tab, and this is where, so you'll see I don't allow rows to break across pages, and repeaters header right at the top of each page is checked, which, as I say, is important and worth doing. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you, though, I'll just escape out of that, is a little bit esoteric in that it only applies to Office 365. And if you're still using Office 2016 or earlier, you won't have this facility. And as I say, it's a bit esoteric, but I'll show it to you quickly. I'm going to go to the ribbon and I'm going all the way across. Drop me out. I've come across the table tools, and as I say, it will only be in Office 365. So the special formatting for the header row, that is checked. Total row is not checked. You could check it if you wanted to. Banded rows, you could or may not, just depends on what you want to do visually. First column is not checked. If I check that, what will happen if I converted this document to PDF, and I'll show you how to do that towards the end, using the Save As dialog, that left column would then be marked up correctly so that in the PDF, the screen reader would read that as row headings. I hope that wasn't too complicated for you. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. I've already discussed this one. So check formatting, yes. Inserting images. Select the image from the illustration group. Start again. Select the image from the illustration group on the Insert tab of the ribbon. Do not paste the image if you want it to be accessible to screen readers, because if you paste it, it won't be. Provide meaningful alternative text. We'll say a bit more about that in a little while. To do that, you right-click the image. In Office 365, you go to Edit All Text. In earlier versions, they kept moving it around. It's either under Format Picture or Size and something else. They keep moving it. Now, I've said depending on settings, but again, this specifically applies to Office 365. In Office 365, if you're connected to the internet and you've turned the feature on, it will automatically provide a description of the image. As you will see, it won't be terribly accurate, but at least it gives me as a blind user some idea about what the picture is, and it's a start. So let's go to our blank document. Oh, yes, let me finish this. Alternative text should be meaningful in the context of surrounding text. So importantly, think about the reason you've put the image into the document. And I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. I'm going to the Insert tab of the ribbon. I'm going to Pictures. I'll have this one here called ADRD. And I'll give you a clue. My son's name is Russell. Now, Word has created a description of this image. I'll let you hear what it says.
Graphic of a person riding a motorcycle down a dirt road. Description automatically generated. Page 1 section. Okay. Toolbar.
I wish. Go away. Go away. It's persistent. I think I've stopped it from telling me how it wanted it. Now I'm going to, you can again right-click the image. I'm hoping this works. It doesn't always work with screen readers, or you can use the application key. Good, it worked. So now I've come to edit all text. So I enter on that. I don't think it let me do it. Sometimes it gets a bit fiddly, so let's just, no, it's just dropped me out of it. So I'll see if I can get back there very quickly. it won't let me drop into it, which is a bit of a pain. It does happen occasionally. Now, if it would have let me in there, I could have written another description, which wouldn't have been a person riding the motorcycle. It would have been two people standing in front of the motorcycle in a lovely scene with fields and mountains in the background, etc. And again, as I said, it would depend on the reason you put that photograph in there, whether it was to talk about our trip or whether it was because you wanted to demonstrate safety gear or something else. So writing a bit more about writing alternative text. Ideally, all text conveys the same meaning as the image, and that can sometimes be a challenge. And in fact, sometimes I would assert that it's sometimes not possible. And particularly in an educational setting, it may well be that material that you're presenting online, if that information is to be conveyed effectively to someone with a print disability or someone who has a significant vision loss, you may well be looking at raised line drawings, 3D printers, etc. So there are times where alt text just will not do the job. Wording depends on the context. I've mentioned that, and that's really important. Describe the scene rather than the image. If the image is a metaphor, explain it. What is an appropriate length? Some people will argue for hours about this. My comment is, while succinct, as long as necessary. And when it shouldn't include all text, when purely for visual decoration. And some people take a fairly liberal view of what is decoration. I sometimes get emails from people like Microsoft, and they have quite nice alt text on their images, which is purely just to set the scene and to get me interested. But, you know, excited people playing with their ThinkPad or something or other is, you know, it's a nice touch. Although if there's lots of images, it can get a bit tedious, so you need to have a think about that. Creating word templates. Templates save reinventing the wheel. If you're going to be using the same format in lots of documents, then create a template. To create the template, open a blank Word document, apply the styles and layouts that you want, and put some placeholder text in there, because that means that when you or someone else comes back to work on that document, you know what should go into that particular section of the document. When you save the template, save it as a DOTM file. So just difference between the scene and the image. What some people are inclined to do, they'll say photograph of a person, and that doesn't really tell me what the image is there for. What's the person doing? Sorry, I missed that last question, Darlene. I'll have to catch me up later.
Yeah, don't worry about the questions. I'll do that after, Andrew.
Yeah, okay. So save as a DOTM, and that will be one of the options that you get when you go to the save as type. Using Word templates. To use a template, just open it in the normal way. Find the template in, when you save it, make sure you know where you put it, by the way. That can be a trap for young players. To use a template, just... Thank you. Open the template, just double click it or enter on it, or however you normally open your Word files. Enter the required information and save as a docx file. So that won't overwrite your template. It'll just create a new file. And that's a really nice way to work. The MS Word Accessibility Checker. To use the Accessibility Checker, open the File menu, Alt-F, select Information, select Check for Issues, and check Accessibility. And a tab will appear with a report on any issues. Correct as necessary. the checker is useful, but it is not infallible. I noticed recently I'd skipped the heading level and it didn't grumble, so I did. An image marked as decorative, yeah, in older versions of Word threw an error. When I checked it on this version of Word the other day, it didn't, so it looks like they've fixed that one. Let's come back to our original document and we'll go to the File menu and that drops us onto Information. I'll tab across. So we go to Inspect Document and we arrow down to check for accessibility. I probably should have created a file with more errors, but never mind. So I'm using the F6 key to go across. Here we go, we're over to our inspections. Now, it's given me a warning about hard to read text, and I've left that one there because that appears on a caption for a photograph, which you may not have seen when I had the document open before. And the reason I left it there is because I created the caption using the default Microsoft style for captions. So it's their fault, not mine, he said smugly. Yeah, so they created the problem in the first place and then blamed me for it. So if you wanted to, you would go back and I don't know why they call it a warning either. Perhaps they're not completely convinced about, I mean, there are tools for checking colour contrast. That's for another day, but maybe theirs isn't as precise because there is a specific specification for the ratio between foreground and background colours. Okay. Converting to a PDF. If Acrobat is installed, which it is on my computer, you can select the Acrobat tab from the ribbon, select Create PDF, and the default settings will usually suffice. From the Word Save As dialog, you can also create the PDF. And that's these days my preferred way of doing it. When I mentioned earlier about checking that left column in the table to show differently, etc., etc. If you use the Acrobat option, that won't mark up properly, whereas if you use the Word Save As, it does. Important to check in options that bookmarks and tags for accessibility are checked. Once you've converted to PDF, by the way, Acrobat has an accessibility checker. They keep moving it from version to version in different places, but it is quite thorough and gives you a very detailed report. Let's come back to our document. I'm going to Save As. Now I'm going to use the F12 key in later versions of Word. If you go to the File menu and Save As, then it wants to go through a whole lot of OneDrive options and all sorts of things. So I've just tabbed across to the Save As, hit P for PDF. There we're on PDF. Now I'm going to go to Options. We won't put any metadata in at the moment, although we should. Here's our options. Now most of these are okay. So I've checked bookmarks there. If that wasn't checked, then you don't get bookmarks in the document. And if you're not familiar with bookmarks in a PDF file, they are a really valuable navigational tool. You essentially get a tree view structure, and that allows you to go through the document, and then it's like a table of contents, and it's very, very effective. So make sure that's checked, and that will convert headings into they call them bookmarks. It's a strange term. Check document properties. And I've checked tag for accessibility here. It used to be that the default seemed to be unchecked. So it is worth checking at least the first time and probably most times to make sure that it has remained checked. So I'll use essentially the same name. So it's sample structured. I'll hit enter. Oh, I didn't delete it before. Sorry about that. I'll overwrite it. So now we have a PDF file which is fully accessible. I'll let you hear a little bit of it.
Heading level 1 sample structured file. Heading level 2 using styles. To create a well-structured file, it is important to use formal styles.
And if I go to the table.
No next table.
Oh, that's not on this document. Sorry. It's the wrong file.
Heading level 2 using
Oh,
styles.
it's probably over the page.
Page 2. Blank. Blank. No next table.
No.
Heading level 1 page 1 sample structured file.
Oh, no, that's right. No, there is no table on this file. Sorry about that. Never mind. But I can jump from heading to heading very quickly.
Using styles heading level 2, tables heading level 2,
etc. I'll spare you any more of that. And that's the PDF. I won't show you the bookmarks now, although if...
Sorry, Andrew, there's just
Yes.
a text box on that sample structured file. So does that come up okay?
No, it's not a text box actually.
Okay.
If we come back to the Word document.
Okay, so it's okay.
It's a style that I applied when I was talking about text boxes.
Okay, so I was worried it was a text box thing.
No,
Oh, no.
no, I made it look like one, but but it's not a text box. I wouldn't do a thing like that.
I know, that's what I was worried about.
Thanks for the pickup. PDFs are not all born equal. There are three general categories of PDF. Image-only PDFs, and this is what really gave PDFs a very bad name because people scan paper documents into the PDF and they're completely inaccessible unless you've got some sort of optical character recognition tool, but that's not equitable access. So I'm not going to advocate that at all. Now, of course, had PDFs not been invented, people would have scanned into Word documents and they would have got the bad rap instead. But anyway, there are unstructured PDFs. So had I not checked that checkbox that said tag for accessibility, it would have been unstructured. Had I printed to PDF, it would have been unstructured. And a lot of the desktop publishing software will produce unstructured PDFs, and they can become a real menace to read with a screen reader or other assistive technology because the reading order goes out to lunch in a big way. Structured or tagged PDFs, they're the ones that we want. So converting from Word to PDF is the way I showed you. As long as your Word document is done well, then you will get a good, useful PDF. Coming from other formats, as I mentioned, coming from InDesign, more knowledge is needed. In fact, yesterday I made the comment that coming from InDesign to make the document accessible, it seems more like a dark art to me than it is a science, but some clever people know how to do it, but it is a bit tricky. So thank you very much. I hope you're still awake. If we have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks, Darlene.
Great, thank you very much. So I had a couple of questions, Andrew. So somebody asked, what is the fastest way to find out if a document has been created using styles?
With a screen reader, it's very easy because it'll tell you. But in a normal Word document, if I come back to our Word document, up in the ribbon, it should be showing you which style is, it's not my forte, but that should be showing you which style is being used for a particular paragraph. Let me go back up the top. So somewhere up in the ribbon there, that should be showing you that a level 1 style is being applied. The other option, of course, would be to go across to the toolbar.
It's Jane here, Andrew. If you can just go to your home, select your home tab, and then we can see the, yep, there we go.
I think if we come back,
yes, that's home now, and then we can see the styles there.
Good. Okay, good.
The styles aren't open. at the moment, but we'd be able to...
You'd be able to click on
mouse.
that and open it.
That's right. We'd be able to mouse and open them, and then we'd be able to see that it's heading 1 and heading 2.
Yeah. Which and it's a very important point, and thanks for asking the question, because it's important that you know, particularly if you haven't created the document, what's been done to it.
Okay.
And yeah, I've got my email and phone number there, so if you do have curly questions, by all means drop me an email, give me a call.
Yep, brilliant. A couple of people have had issues with trying to find alt tag, the alt tag.
For images.
Yeah, so I've kind of did a little bit of search while we're doing it, and it might be one of those Google things if you haven't.
Essentially, regardless of the version of Word, if you right click the image, then it should open the appropriate menu so that you can find it. As I said, though, they have moved it around. I think it's under size or format picture.
And sometimes it's actually under, is it the paint box? There might be an image of a paint box, because I've gone to the new Word now. I can't remember the old Word, but for the people that do have difficulty, please feel free either to call Andrew or myself to kind of work that out. It'd be great, because it'd be great to have all images alt tagged in the future.
Yes.
Yeah. Someone's just asked, can you show us how to structure a box, please? Does that person mean a text box? Because text boxes are an issue, aren't they, Andrew?
Text boxes. The funny thing is that Word gives us all these tools to make a document fully accessible, but they also give us tools that allow you to make a document that's completely inaccessible. If you use what Word calls a text box, then screen readers and literacy assistance software won't know that the text box is there, because the beauty of the text box from the designer's point of view is that you can tow it around the page to where you want it. The disadvantage for people who use assistive technology is that the assistive technology doesn't know that it's there. It can be found with a screen reader if you sort of guess there must be something missing and you do a lot of browsing around with.
Has it got an alt text in the back of that at all?
No. See, again, let me come. Are you seeing my text box there?
We are seeing your text box.
Okay, so that is not a text box.
Yep.
That is...
Style box do not use text boxes. They are.
So that's it, style box. That is the style I've given to the paragraph. All I did was to indent it and then put the border around it and then created the style called box.
Brilliant.
So it is not a text box. I just did it to show you can make it look like one, but it is a proper paragraph. So in answer to the question, if you use a text box, it won't be accessible. Paradoxic.
But to do a box, you can do it in the paragraph.
Yeah, if you wanted to make it look like this, then you just create the paragraph, indent it, you choose whatever font you want, set the indent, set the space before and after, and then put the border around it. But that's not the appeal of the appeal of text boxes for people who are writing documents, is that they can then just push it around the page to where they want it to be.
Yep. So people are really keen to kind of see how you've done that in style, if possible.
What's the easiest way to do that? If I go to, I should be able to do that. I'm trying to get the modify style. Oh, there we go. Whoops.
Okay, so for people who want to check out the chat box while you're doing that, Andrew, someone's just kind of put up some ideas on how you actually get to the alt text in the old versions of Word. So thank you for that.
Oh, so let me go to new style. I think that'll do it. I think. Now, style 1 is normally, that's the default that a new style gets given. I'd suggest not doing that. Give it a meaningful name. So it's a paragraph, and it's based on my box style. So you see I've got a Helvetica, I've got 14 point, I've checked bold. I'm just tabbing across. That automatically update, I'd normally not check that, because if you make a mistake and it updates itself, you can be in trouble. And that's where I've got only this document. And here we get the format. So that's the border, and that's where I'll put the border around it. So that's, does that answer the question that the person was asking?
I think hopefully that will work. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I've done. So again, just to reiterate, it is not a text box. It is a normal a normal document.
Yep. No, that's brilliant.
Okay. Yeah. That's
so probably more of a a larger question, not necessarily the how to. Well, it is a how to, is how to support colleagues in creating accessible documents who haven't considered accessibility before, lack of awareness or knowledge. I mean, this is often what we're dealing with, teachers and academics and so forth. Any suggestions of that, Andrew?
Re-education camp is the solution. Siberia, I think, has a I mean, one of the things I've tried to convey in this presentation is that once you know how to set up your styles and how to apply them quickly and easily, it saves you a huge amount of time and effort. Someone near and dear to me, when she was going through uni, asked me to check her essays, and I kept grumbling that she's not using, you're not using proper style. She said, I haven't got time. I said, you're wasting time. She's now a high school teacher and gets absolutely livid if students don't use proper styles because eventually the penny dropped. So yes, it's important to get people to understand that it's for their own sake as well as anyone else's, that you're getting them to do it this way. That's the important bit. That and
Yep, great, thank you. I don't know if you've answered this, Andrew, because I was kind of in the middle of doing, doing things. So, but is it possible to remove styling buttons, e.g. bold, italic, font size, colour, from MS Word to force authors to use built-in styles, title, level 1?
Not to my knowledge, and you probably don't want to do it anyway, because when you set up your style, I mean, you may well, like particularly for heading styles, you may well want to use bold and so forth. So you may want to use those buttons in the creation of your new or the modification of your style. So I'm not sure that you'd want to do that, or that. As I think that's a good idea.
It is a good idea. Let's put it to Word and get them to put that as an option.
You can only use the styles that I've given you.
Yes. Well, especially if you are setting up I suppose if the template's set up.
The template, you still have all the other. You probably can take. I mean, you can modify the ribbon, so it is possible that that when you're setting up the templates, you could pull all that, a lot of those things out of the ribbon so that people couldn't get to it. It's a very nice thought. I like that one.
Yeah. Excellent. Any final questions for Andrew? I'm reading through. I've got 3 screens here reading through, hoping I haven't missed any. There was the InDesign question, but you answered that.
I think I've covered that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's what I should add is, well, first of all, I have now. It's a bit old now, but I do have quite a lot of stuff that I've grabbed from Adobe on creating PDFs from InDesign to make them accessible. But I also had a quick look on the Adobe. I did a Google search and went to Adobe, and they've got some new material, and it looks a little bit like it might be easier than it used to be. But it is it is more complicated than coming from Word, and if you're a person who uses InDesign, then I'd be strongly suggesting that you use a screen reader, NVDA if you wish, because it's free and easy to use, just to make sure that it's reading the way you want once you've created the PDF. And in fact, the Adobe materials seem to suggest that there is still some remediation required once you've got the PDF done, which all gets a bit a bit heroic.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, but just that good practice. That the reality is, if you were heading off, giving it off to a designer, you would have probably started in Word anyway to give them the content. So
yeah, but once it goes to InDesign, then you lose all that.
Yeah, but if you actually then provide two, if you can't do that, you can actually provide two documents.
Yes, you could.
In the department.
Now, I missed the name, but someone was, Roz was asking about mind mapping tools.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me or whether it's screen reader users generally, but they don't work for me at all. It might be my whole thing about alphabetical order and all this sort of stuff. It might be just my concrete thinking. But I suspect that mind mapping tools are a fairly visual sort of metaphor. I might be wrong, but yeah, at least from my perspective, that they don't work for me at all. I write things down in a linear fashion. So OneNote, for example, that Troy was demonstrating last week, I've never been able to get any joy out of it at all.
Okay. So if any other screen reader users are online with and have come across some mind maps or apps tools that are accessible, please pop it in the chat box.
Right. OneNote is not inaccessible. It it's just more trouble than it's worth for me to do it.
Yep, no, that's fine. Someone just I think that's all the questions. So thank you, Andrew. As always, when I talk to you, I learn so much, and hopefully people will have picked up some tips and tricks today to making their Word documents and their PDFs far more accessible. The webinar will be available on ADCET. You will receive an email. And as I said, we've also got some how-to videos, little short vignette videos coming that Andrew's done for us, that you can actually go back into, how to create a PDF, how to check your accessibility. So it'll actually be all in separate videos too. So if you know how to alt tag, but you don't know how to check for accessibility, you'll be able to go to the right video for that. So hopefully they'll be coming online very quickly.
And they're about 5 minutes each, so you can get through quite quickly. And I'll just finish up with a story I heard some time ago about a tourist who was in New York City, and he pulled up a passerby and said, "Pardon me, how do I get to Carnegie Hall?" And the guy said, "Practice, man, practice." so go away and practice.
Oh, it's a dad joke, I say. That's a dad joke.
Well, the point is that go away and practice what we've gone through. So because if you come back to it in 6 months' time, you'll have forgotten it. Whereas if you start putting it into practice, it'll become second nature. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I think it's that use it or lose it kind of stuff.
Right.
So,
yes,
and someone was just texting before saying, we must remember to keep using this stuff so that we're, it becomes second nature to us. Just a blatant plug before people do sign off. Our next webinar actually is happening next week on Monday, and that's going to be for collaboration for improved career development decisions for students with mental health conditions. So that's on Monday at 1 o'clock. All the details are on the ADCET website if you'd like to register for that. So thank you everybody for joining us. It's been a delight to have you all with us today, and thank you for your questions and for playing along at home. So go forth and be accessible. And and thank you so much, Andrew, for presenting the information today.
Bye all.
Okay, bye.